Just gone 7 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is Morning News Today. Now, Capetonians are using about 40 million litres less water a day than they're allowed to, even though the water crisis ended nearly 5 months ago. Experts say this could be out of fear of day zero when taps were predicted to run dry last April. Well, we chat to Worldwide Fund South Africa's Colvin now on this apparent change in consumers' understanding of the value of water and the need to conserve it. Morning, Christine. Thank you very much for your time. Well, we do know that from December 2018, the Capetonians were allowed to spend more water, or use more water rather, 650 million litres a day. But up to now, they are still spending well below that, that allowance. Why is that, you think?
Yeah, it's a very interesting phenomenon, and I think, you know, it was such a struggle for us in Cape Town to bring down our water consumption. You know, we mustn't forget that Cape Town's the only city in the world that managed to halve its consumption of water without having the taps turned off. And now that we've made that huge effort to reduce our consumption, what's been interesting is that even though our dam levels have recovered and the water levels have gone back up, our consumption levels haven't rebounded back to the pre-drought levels. So we were quite interested to understand why that is, and conducted a survey amongst our staff at WWF to see what was keeping them saving water.
And what did they tell you?
So it was interesting that initially people changed their behavior as a result of fear. So people were really genuinely afraid of the prospect of day zero, having to queue up for their water. But once they'd made those changes, and a lot of people have invested in new infrastructure in their homes, being able to recycle and reuse what was previously wastewater, as well as just a complete change of habits and behavior. And that stuck. So now if you come to Cape Town and you go to restaurants or use shared office spaces, you'll still see that people are not flushing the toilet every time they go to the toilet. And a lot of the changes at home, washing your laundry less often, recycling and reusing as much of the water as possible have become permanent changes. And I think a lot of that was also in response during the drought campaign. There was a lot of talk about the fact that this will be our new normal, and that the changes that we made to cope with that particular drought crisis are going to stand us in good stead for Cape Town in the future, which is likely to have more droughts under conditions of climate change.
Do you think this behavior will continue into the long term? Is this sustainable? I'm asking this against the background of what Cape Town is planning to do. Last week, here on Monday, here on Morning News Today, rather, we interviewed Xanthia Limberg, who's a member of the Cape Town Council, about this new 5.4 billion rand new water systems to improve the water availability to Cape Town up to the year 2026. Do you think when people hear that, they will say, oh, there's going to be more water anyway, I can afford to change my behavior now? Or is your sense that Capetonians will adhere to the existing behavior?
Our sense is that Cape Towns are adhering to their change behaviour, and we also need to remember that it's not only the city of Cape Town that's reliant on the dams and the catchments and the water source areas in the Western Cape. Agriculture and the huge agri-industries and jobs in agriculture also rely on those same water sources. So Cape Town is in a better position to be able to diversify its water sources with groundwater, with some desalinated water, and agriculture is still very reliant on surface water resources.
And we do understand, as you say, currently, besides the dam levels, that the Karoo region in the Western Cape, which also relies on some of those dams, is still in the grip of drought. And I guess that might still have an impact on how people in the Western Cape, I mean, overall, what they are doing, how they are behaving. What lessons do you think areas like us here in Gauteng can take out of Cape Town? Because, after all, South Africa as a whole country is a dry country.
Absolutely. And one of the things that became a kind of saying during the Cape Town drought is you can't build your way out of a drought. So it's absolutely essential that the whole of the rest of drought-prone cities and towns in South Africa learn the lessons in advance of their own crisis and start increasing their investment in their engineered infrastructure, as well as looking after the catchments and the water source areas, which is ultimately where our water comes from. So I think a critical lesson was don't wait until the crisis before we take serious steps to start saving more water and diversifying the sources of water that we can use.
Yeah, and I guess Capetonians would manage with 50 litres per day per person last year. We can also do that in other parts of the country. Thank you very much, Christine Colvin from Worldwide Fund South Africa.